So I thought I would take this opportunity to slow our gears down a little bit and give you guys a little side project that's going to reinforce all the stuff that we're going to be doing in Photoshop, but also do a little something seasonal. So this one's called Spooky House. So let's go. Here are some examples of some different ones that you can make. They all have a background that has a bit of sort of like fuzzy gradients and stuff like that. We have a house, and the doorway and the windows look like they're glowing, and there's a moon in the picture along with some other sorts of things. So I'm going to take you through some of the basics, and let's see what you guys can come up with. We're going to work on this for 2 days. So you're going to open up Photoshop, and we're going to open up a new file. So the first thing, get the right size. So whether or not you want to set it to inches or pixels, 300 pixels per inch. Let's go nice and big for this one. Let's do a piece of large piece of paper like in the art room. It's going to be 12 by 18. The width is going to be 12. The height's going to be 18. 300 pixels per inch. If you decide to do pixels, it's going to be 5400 by 3600. Make the background contents white. So the first thing we're going to make is this background. We're going to make it look kind of like a target. It's going to be white in the middle, and then slowly about 5 layers of different colors as it gets wider. So we're going to make a new layer, and let's call this layer, by double clicking on the name, Silhouette. No, not Silhouette, sorry. Let's call this background. You can call it background. You can call it, I'm going to call it sky. Keep it simple. Okay, this is going to be your sky. You're going to start off with white in the middle. You're not going to see it. And the brush that you're going to use, let's spend a couple minutes on the brush. Make sure that the size is, it's probably going to be something around, let's see, something along the lines of 500, 400, 500, something like that. Make sure the hardness is at 100%. And then you're going to start making your little sky, and you can see in the middle is the white. It's okay to make more than you think you need. Now we're going to switch over to another color. You can use whatever family of color you want. Let's say I want to do something like in the orange family. You're going to start off light, then you're going to have something a little darker and darker and darker. Okay, so you're going to go with 1, 2, 3, 4 levels of darkness. Okay, and you can see like I'm selecting them going on an angle. So my next one's going to be kind of light. I'm going to say okay, and I'm going to go on top of that white. Now you may notice that your brush may not be as smooth as mine. It might look like a little choppy. I'm going to go over to the brush settings, which is right over here. If you can't find it, go to Window and go to Brushes. Okay, and you have brush settings. Okay, there's brushes and brush settings. Make sure your spacing is down low. Okay, if you bring it up high, it might look like this. It might look like choppy. So bring your spacing down to 1, the lowest you can. I'm going to get rid of the settings by clicking right there. Alright, so I'm going to go with my other level of color. Now I'm going to click here. I'm going to go to my next color. And I'm going to, it doesn't have to be pretty, it's just making like a little target. I'm going to go with my next color, and you can see I'm clicking on a new one. Like that. And I can always go back and forth, so it doesn't have to be a very neat one, because you'll see what we're going to do next, and then we're going to make it even darker. So if you wanted to change the distribution of the colors, if you wanted more of a color, less of a color, we can work on that. Okay, so you can always go back, click on the color, and you can always reapply it. So you're basically covering up little circles, if you could. Okay. Add a little bit more of that one color right here. Okay. Okay. And that's good enough. Now we're going to blur the heck out of this. So to blur it, we go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. And you can see down here is the radius. So the bigger the number, the more blurry it gets. So you've got to figure out how blurry you want to make it. Okay, we're now going to put a an ellipse. We're going to put a circle in the middle. And this time what we're going to do is we're going to use the shape tool. Now if you're having trouble finding it, you can go down to the dotted lines here. You're looking for a tool called the ellipse tool. Okay, and the shortcut to that is the letter U. So if you're having trouble finding it. Now by holding down the shift button as you make this circle, it's going to make it perfectly round. Now the color, I'm going to undo that. Your options are here. It's going to be white, no stroke, no line through it. And again, hold down the shift button, hold down the shift button and make yourself a circle. You can adjust the size, whatever you want. You can also move it over, whatever you decide to do. I'm just putting it right in the middle. And hit done. Okay. So the next step is we're going to be making a silhouette. So we're going to add a new layer, or I'm going to call this silhouette. So you could go ahead and do a search if you need to of some things, and it could be houses. So if I did a search, I literally Googled up spooky houses, and you could take some screenshots and put them off to the side of what you want the house to look like. You can even find pictures of creepy trees. But put the word silhouette, because everything's going to be creepy tree silhouette. And go to images, and you can certainly look for some images that you want to work with. Okay? You can also look up bats, you can look up ghosts, you can look up cemeteries, whatever you want a silhouette. Okay. But we're going to start working on our silhouette. Everything on the silhouette is going to be black. So we're going to switch the color to black. Now here's a brush that might be handy. We're going to be making a ground, right? So you might want a grassy ground. If you just want to do a ground that's like this, you absolutely can. You know, kind of like last 2 years ago when we did our landscapes. You can just keep it like this. But let's say you want some grass. We're going to use Photoshop to our advantage. What I'd like you to do is to go to the brushes, but I want you to click on this arrow right here. So here are our general brushes: wet, dry, brushes, special effects. There's actually a grass brush, but in order to get it, we have to load the brush. So you see this little gear here? We're going to click on it. And down here, it's called Legacy Brushes. Say OK. Now, when I go back to those brushes by clicking on that arrow, here's my Legacy. And it's in default, and it's called Grass. It's in here somewhere. Let's see, dune grass and grass. There they are. Now, if you're having trouble finding it, you don't even have to search for it. You can go to Search Brushes and type in grass. There it is. There's dune grass and there's grass. I'm going to work on this one. Okay. Now, we're going to go to the brush settings right here. So you can see a sample of what the brush will do down here. If I increase the spacing, I spread them out. I can bring them in. I can dictate the size of the brush, and you're not really going to know it until you put it on. There's scatter texture. You can explore these, but let's see what happens when I put a little bit on. Okay, so what it's doing is it's doing color dynamics. I'm going to uncheck color dynamics, and I'm going to reapply it. So yeah, I'm probably going to want it to be bigger. So I'm going to use the arrows next to the P, and I'm going to resize it. Let me undo that. And so if you just wanted to get that grass on there pretty quickly, you can do that. Okay, gives it a little bit of depth. You can make it a little smaller. You can go with some more grass. You get the idea. So it just gives it a little something, not that you have to. All right, so now I'm going to draw my house. Okay, ooh, I have a little extra there. I'm going to do the polygonal, and I'm going to just get the basis of the house. I'm going to add to my selection some shape. So that's one way, and then I can use the paint bucket and fill it up with black. Let's find my paint bucket. Okay, whoops. I'm going to have to do uncheck contiguous. There we go. So I'm just going to fill it all in. So you can build up your house by using the elliptical. If you just want to draw it, you're going to go back to your normal brush, brushes, hard round pressure. And if you just wanted to use the brackets next to the P and you wanted to draw it manually, you can draw it manually. We're also going to remove some spaces. Okay, so I'm going to finish this up and get back to you. Now, real quick, to do a tree, there's a little trick. You're going to go with just a regular brush, okay, and go with the big brush to kind of indicate the thickness of the thickest part of the tree. Make a Y. Make it a little smaller. Go with another Y. Smaller. More Ys. Okay, a little smaller. So this is basically your idea of making a tree. Alright, so all the branches need to be a little bit smaller and smaller and smaller. You can also, again, refer to some images that you might find. All of these black spaces are done on one layer called Silhouette. I'm now going to go ahead and I'm going to remove some areas, like with the polygonal lasso tool. Let's say I want to get rid of that door, and then maybe I want to, keep going to add and subtract from selection and trying out different ways that I can add or remove areas. So play around. Now I'm just happen to be using the polygonal lasso tool. You can try different tools and just knowing if you're adding or taking away. Oops. Let's try that one. There we go. And then if you hit delete, it's going to allow the color to show through. So you're just basically putting holes in a bunch of places. Okay, so now underneath this silhouette, put another layer. And right underneath there, I'm going to start to color in with probably some sort of bright, intense color. Let's go with like a bright green. I'm going to brush in behind here so that way they all look like, make it look like the light in the windows. I can get this little owl dude. So it makes it look like I'm really coloring it in carefully, but what I'm basically doing is just scribbling behind the silhouette. All right, go around here. So that's a little something. Okay, so last thing, you can always go back to the silhouette, add more, take away more. The last thing we're going to do is we're going to make some like these little squirrely looking clouds. Okay, so we're going to add one more layer. And we're going to put this underneath, let's see, yeah, underneath everything, in front of the sky and the ellipse there. And we're going to call this maybe clouds. This one can be called windows, just to kind of keep everything in check. So then in the clouds, what we're going to do is we're going to take a big round brush and we're going to make some like little wavy, kind of like stringy, sort of cloud-like shapes like this. And you can make them, however you want. You can always try things out, just like that. Now what we're going to do, though, is we're going to go back to filter and we're going to blur them up. Gaussian blur. All right, so you can see that it kind of adds a little something to it. If you want to put some in front, you can do that. Make it look like clouds or like fog. If you want them in front of, if you want to lower the opacity on that, if you want to go with a couple of rows of that, you can. I'm going to duplicate it by hitting Command J, and I'll put some in the back, some in the front, and maybe I'll make them a little off. Oops, sorry, wrong one. I'll take these clouds and I'll make them a little different, like a little offside, so they're not exactly in the same location. Okay. So that is it. It's I'm going to make sure that you have a sky and a moon. At this point, if I wanted to move the moon, oh my goodness, what's that? If I want to move the moon, I can move it over here if I'd like. I can put a little glow around the moon. I can explore a lot of possibilities. Play around with your silhouettes. You can add things to your silhouette and give it a glow in the background, that kind of thing. With the windows here, you can change the color. So have some fun. When you save this to work again, you're going to save as a PSD, a